Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com.
Welcome, everyone, to the Community IT Innovators Voices interview series. My name is Carolyn Woodard, and I am the Outreach Director for Community IT. And today I'm very happy to welcome Jennifer Huftalen to the interview. So, Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your job title and how long you've been at Community IT?
Yes, thanks, Carolyn. Thanks so much for having me on. My name's Jennifer Huftalen. I go by Jenny typically, but respond to both of those names. And I'm currently the Director of Client Services at Community IT, and I've been here for 16 years. I just celebrated 16 years in October, which is an unbelievable length of time for so many reasons. But it's been a wonderful journey so far, and happy to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know that a lot of our staff have been with us for over 10 years. So you're definitely in that club.
Yes, for sure. Yes. Remarkably. I mean, I think that I remember when I first started and people talked about the sabbatical that was offered at 10 years. And I was like, it was hard to imagine in my early 20s then that I'd get there, things being in your 30s felt like an impossible distance to cover, but it happened very quickly. And I feel like I'm staring down 20 years now. So maybe want to, see if we can get one of those sabbaticals to go round 2.
That's amazing. Do you remember when you started at Community IT and kind of how that happened? What was your job then that you were hired for? And how did you find Community IT?
Yes, I remember it very well. I had been living in DC for a couple of years. I had cousins that lived in DC. So I visited as a kid and I loved the city. So in some ways I was drawn to DC first, and then kind of fell into a couple of jobs that were happened to be related to account management, which, obviously ended up being the area that I focused on Community IT. But I'd say it was not necessarily deliberate focus. I kind of knew what I didn't like. And, the first couple of job experiences I had also kind of reinforced what wasn't a great fit for me, which was more kind of corporate work, more kind of buttoned up culture. Sort of had what I tried to figure out what I valued about things in general, including work, like what I wanted my work day to feel like. What kind of things I wanted to be a part of and contribute to. And as part of that, I was just job searching and I found I think it was on, listed somewhere, maybe Indeed. I'd done the corporate work. I thought I'd see what kind of nonprofit work was out there. And there was an opening for an entry-level position doing just admin work at Community IT. And it happened to be close to the neighborhood I was living in. And I was really drawn to just the fact that they were able to support a wide range of, issues that, through the nonprofits we supported that I thought were really important. So, it gave me an opportunity and I could tell right away as well that the culture was aligning with kind of the way I liked to, or at least I thought I wanted to live and contribute to the world, where it was very, clearly very flexible and open and, a lot of different diversity with the staff. And so all of those things felt right to me. Despite not having any kind of background in technology, I was, I had some background in doing some account support, and, the two things seemed to work out and came together. And that's where I landed.
I know it's, I think you and I may be two of the least technical people at Community IT. So I definitely, sure. people laugh when I tell them, oh, I work for an IT company. So
me too.
It It takes all kinds. And I feel like also I have learned so much about our realm of expertise just by interacting with people and, kind of interacting with you and with what the clients are asking for and what the teams are able to provide. So I've definitely learned a lot. I'm a lot smarter about IT than I was to begin with, for sure.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it was a real uphill battle for me, but I think it speaks to the, our colleagues who are, obviously very good with technology, but also really good about explaining it. And, I felt like the guinea pig in a lot of cases sometimes, because I'd have to just be like, well, just really put it in the most basic of terms for me to understand. And, our team has always been so good at that. And I've really learned so much, again, like just through being close to it and hearing how they talk about it and describe the way things work. And, despite myself, I feel like I now do kind of understand technology in a way that I never would have imagined I could, back then, for sure.
So can you talk a little bit about your career path at Community IT? You said you started out as an entry-level position, and now you are the Director of Client Services. So within Community IT, how does that happen? Was there a set, every so often you get promoted to this or that, or do you make your own path? Did you have mentors? How does that work?
So that's a great question. I think my trajectory looks a lot different than for the folks who are technical, and have been around maybe as long as me. Although I think to some degree, the evolution of our company has, the steps they take has also probably become a lot more clear and sophisticated. We evolved as a company from being, IT professionals, but having staff that really covered all components to the client relationship. The technicians themselves were writing up contracts. They were dealing with service disputes. They were doing all of those things. And it wasn't until we kind of grew as a company and then clearly had to define some of those, some of those tasks as part of a deliberate team, and have the technical folks focus on doing the technical work. And then somebody like me kind of take on the non-technical work. So because that hadn't been established yet, there wasn't clear steps necessarily, which again really worked well for me because like I said, I wasn't drawn to the company because of the specific technical work. I was drawn because I really liked the culture, and part of that culture was allowing people to kind of find their strengths and find what they're good at and sort of take a peek behind that door, see if it makes sense. And if so, keep moving. So I was given a lot of flexibility, a lot of time to kind of try different things, and like I said, I had some background in doing account management. So contracts made sense to kind of focus on. The service company has a need for the customer service side. And I had a little bit of experience there too. So it really just was an evolution of over time. And throughout that process, I was lucky enough to have, kind of direct experience working with some of our leadership. At the time, Johan Hammerstrom, our CEO, was handling a lot of the client services needs. And I just kind of shadowed him a ton. I would go to meetings together. I'd just see how he handled different conversations, tricky conversations. And, again, over time, it became sort of starting to sink in, like, okay, this is how we could maybe think about what our customer service standards could be. And maybe I could play a role in defining those and, and make sure that we're kind of consistent about delivering those standards. So, so I started out, like I said, at the front desk, got a lot of exposure to the whole company there. And then, there was this need to formalize kind of an account manager role. So a few years in, became an account manager. And now the director of client services role is really with a focus on, formalizing what our customer experience needs to be, making sure that our customers are having a consistent experience and that there is a sort of clear definition of what that is at Community IT.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? I know you've spent the last year or year and a half thinking about what the client experience should be, and you have several touchstone phrases that we hear. So when you have thought about this kind of from the outside in of how a client is experiencing our service, what are those like key phrases and goals that you have for our customer service?
Yeah, one of the, I think, advantages to being a person that's not technical is that I think I can kind of sense or feel or have a different perspective maybe on what it is to experience, technical work, whether it's, actually, dealing with fixing a problem, or how technology plays a role in your workday if you're not a person who's thinking about it from the back end. So one of the things that I kept coming back to as I was trying to define our kind of customer service standards was that we needed to be able to meet people where they're at with technology. I think it's hard, and especially for people who are very technical, it can sometimes be hard to pull yourself out of kind of what you understand. It's almost like a second nature to you if you're in it all the time, and it's just efficient to talk about it in a certain way if you've lived in it and it all makes sense to you. But our customers, and I'm not a person who lives in that world, so in order for us to be able to connect with them, understand where they're coming from, understand what they're trying to achieve, provide a service, that's adding value, we need to be able to meet them and see the kind of problem the way they see it. So that was kind of a big part of my focus was, how do we, what practices we need to put in place to help all of our staff do that well. And that's really kind of a fundamental component to providing good service, is that we're able to understand where our clients are coming from and then be able to get them to a better place. And that's the other part of it that, is our goal as a service company, is to add value. And, we can only add value if we understand the problem, right? So that's sort of been my mantra over the last, year or so is, let's meet them where they're at and get them to a better place.
Excellent. If I can shift gears a little bit, I know that you worked in DC originally and you work remotely now. And I also work remotely, and Community IT has been extremely supportive in staff being able to work remotely or as a hybrid, like coming into the office in DC sometimes, but also working remotely. And then we also support clients remotely, entirely remotely in lots of cases nationwide. Can you talk a little bit about that evolution, like going from working in the office as the office, receptionist, front desk, to now working from New York State, and also, like having a family while you're a career employee at Community IT, and how that is supported?
Yes. I think that's one of the things Community IT has always been a little bit ahead of the curve on, is accommodating not just remote work, but as you say, kind of broadly flexible work-life balance. We really walk the walk on that one. And I think that, again, when I go back to thinking about why I was drawn to the company, that was a huge part of it. Even though, early on I needed to be kind of in the office as the person who answered the front door, it was essential. There was always a sense that there could be, flexibility in my schedule to some degree, that, this, sense that, we had a life outside of work was always there, and always displayed by our leadership as well. I mean, I remember when I started, our CEOs just had a baby, and he was out, for that. So I experienced that early on. And then, after a few years, I had, for personal reasons, kind of a need to move to New York City. And when I asked if that would be something I could do, I had obviously at that point moved on from the front desk and, was doing account management work specifically, which is a little bit more mobile than, answering the door, answering the phone. So yeah, I mean, there was no hesitation. It was, that was back in, I think, 2014. So way before anybody knew about a pandemic or any kind of remote work as a standard thing. And yeah, I think, there was a sense that, and I think this really is a general cultural value at community IT too, is that there's a lot of trust. I mean, if you work hard and you stick to your responsibilities, they don't have to kind of see how you're doing it, or, that the way you're doing it. If the work is getting done, they trust that you'll do that. And I think, I felt very fortunate that they allowed me to move first to New York City, where I stayed for a few years. And then after having my first son, the city kind of gobbled us up a little bit. And I was able to move back where I'm from, here in central New York, to be around family. And at that point, again, I had been working remotely for about 5 years. And it was, just, there were no questions. It was you getting your work done, and you're available for meetings. And it was working very well. And then I think, as we approached our current situation, where it's very common now for people to work remotely, community IT was so well positioned to handle that transition, because, we had, they'd already sort of allowed people to have a flexible work schedule, again, kind of knowing that as long as you're responsible and you're doing your work, it doesn't matter how it gets done or when, as long as it gets done. But in addition to that, there was a lot of technical support that allowed for people to just seamlessly go into working remotely. We didn't miss a day. It was things were already in the cloud, which means you could access the information you need from anywhere. Many people, even those who were based in DC, already had laptops, which allowed them to be more flexible. So, I think that there was, a sense that as part of having and offering a work-life balance, even before the pandemic, you needed to give people the ability to work from where they may need to work from sometimes. And yeah, like you say, if you have a family, sometimes that means you got to get out of the house. You got to go take your computer somewhere else. That sort of foundation was there when, we had to all go remote. And I felt like, for me, it almost was a benefit that now everybody was remote, and now everybody lives in this space where I was. It used to be I'd join meetings, and, I was one of, a handful of people who may be on the phone. And there's just a way different dynamic, as you know, from being in a room with somebody and then having one person kind of on the phone versus, everybody being on the screen or on the phone or in the same location. So I feel like it really was fortunate in some ways for me to join, now have the rest of the workforce sort of join me remotely. And we already had all these tools, kind of ready to go. And, it's just made kind of handling that, the nature of our work being remote that much easier now. And of course, we miss seeing each other, but I think we've really, as a company, again, because that foundation was there, that trust was there. I think that, people, we've been able to adapt to being a fully remote company and maintain that type of kind of culture, that type of expectation, even though we're all, kind of meeting each other on the screens now. I think that, we're still able to do that and do that well.
That's one thing that I really, noticed, and we've kept it going, is I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we started on our remote calls to have like a little check-in moment at the beginning of calls of just like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What's going on? Like as a person, and then we would start the meeting and talk about what we needed to talk about. And we've really been able to keep that going, which I find is just kind of exemplifies also that like people are whole people. They work part of their time and they have other lives outside of their time at work. And you can do better work, I think, if you're connected in that way. And I think that actually helped our clients as well, that some of them had to move to remote very quickly. at the beginning of the pandemic, and we already had this experience. So as we were helping them, fully realize their cloud technology and be able to work remotely, we also had, as a company, that experience of what helps make remote work. And so we were able to help them with that as well. So like you said, we were just well positioned to be able to support our clients with that.
Yeah, it was a challenging time for us and for all of our clients. And we, felt fortunate to be able to make sure at least one major component of their operations, their IT, was, continuing on smoothly, and that they could rely on us. And, we had the experience ourselves and the expertise to help them get to a better place there. Yeah.
It's crazy too when I think about all of the companies that are like forcing people to go back into the office that don't want to.
I don't see how that's going to work.
It's just so like, there's a good thing. Like, let people have the good thing.
That's right. I know. I really don't understand it. I mean, I think we've all understand that getting together is valuable. Like, I think the time we spend in, we feel that, and I do think some of it just does come down to trust. Like, if you don't think your staff are capable of managing flexibility, then, that's a kind of
management problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Like if you have to have like eyeball trackers to make sure they're like doing work when the hours they're supposed to be at work. It's like, honestly, like when my kids were little, I worked at night. Like I would work after I put them to sleep, because the day I was so distracted. I would work from like 7 to 10 at night, like every night. And just having that flexibility is
it's huge.
I don't understand.
It's essential.
I mean, I understand.
I don't either. But yeah, I guess I understand, but I also don't understand. And I feel like there's a sense that it is going to be coming back, that people are going to be wanting to go back to the office. And
some people working from home was terrible. They get energy from being interrupted.
Right. That's true. No, that's a good point.
I have a friend who her social calendar has to be full. When she slows down, it's bad for her mental health.
Yeah.
It has to be going on, like their calendar. I couldn't do it, but they're like, they go out to eat all the time. They drive around to see different friends. They, her calendar has to be full. And I think there are a lot of people who are like that, who are just like, I want to be with people. I do not want to be by myself at my house, Yeah. And so for those people, like, I wish there was a way for them to have like an office environment.
It's interesting you say that, because I felt like there was, a lot of it. So I feel like up until the pandemic, like so much of what was valued was people who are out there doing. That's like what you should be doing, like consuming, and the pandemic revealed for a lot of people, like, oh, this is actually the way I want to live. Like, this is where I've been looking for. But for those people who thrived in the previous world, it hit them really hard. And there wasn't really a avenue for how to get out of it, because you really didn't have literally no options, to do anything and get out. Yeah. And so, I think it's interesting, because I feel like it's been really positive for a lot of people who, value the quiet time, need it. And for those who aren't able to, it's just super, super challenging. But now that we know both worlds, we can maybe create a better one. I don't know.
Yeah. Make a hybrid, best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. So I always ask this question, when you are in an elevator or at a cocktail party and someone asks you, what does community IT do? What do you do? What's your job? What do you say? What does community IT do?
Yeah, I always say that, we provide IT services to nonprofits. That's kind of where I start. And I always, because I do sometimes get that look, especially if the person knows me at all, of what you do what? And I say, well, I do the non-technical part of that. So I, manage the, ongoing relationships, the contracting and service related questions. But the company is providing, an essential service for the nonprofit community and providing support to their technology needs.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really enjoyed spending the time with you.
Of course. Thank you, Carolyn.
Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.